This is something which I thought mm, is though I've put it up as teens and young adults, but I think it is for everybody who has been at a certain stage, facing some kind of stress or the other. Now, stress for different age groups can be coming from different circumstances, different factors, but there are certain things which are common to all. Okay, so high expectations is one more factor which I thought is a huge. It's a huge factor which contributes to anxiety. What are these high expectations? Are these high expectations from one's own self? Because they can be a huge point of stressor. High expectations from parents, from the immediate peers. If it's a high performing class, there's tendency that one person or few people may feel immensely pressurized by their entire peer group. High expectations also from society, the way it functions now. Most colleges, most reputed colleges have a cutoff of 96, 99%, 98%. What does that mean? Does that mean that only those kids who enter those colleges are capable? Actually, no. It just means that there are some people who are great at performing at exams, but unfortunately, the system doesn't accommodate everybody else. The people, if you look at a comparison of high achievers and at a certain stage, not when you're in your 20s, but if you look at high achievers who've performed extremely well in during their college years, and somebody who's from an average, if you're looking at a scorecard, by the time they're 40s, I don't know how many differences that you can really note in their lifestyle in today's time. I'm talking not talking of a 30, 40 years back generation. I'm talking of today's time. Most people are able to achieve many of the things that they want in terms of financial status. Many people, okay, are able to do that. So does that mean only those guys who have guys or girls who have passed out from most reputed colleges do well? Not essentially, but at this stage, at a very young stage, it tends to become a huge pressure. Hormones is yet another factor. Hormones, we all know, at different stages we're going through different physiological changes, and how that can impact our response to stress. I'll just bring in one very small thing here. The change in our body, for example, something so common as thyroid. Now, thyroid is a very common problem now. It brings about so many changes in our body that people don't even realize. So if suppose somebody has from a very young age change in this hormone, very likely that they may experience a lot of even emotional changes. Many a times they experience even very, very low feelings, but you don't realize it. Then there is I think when I touched high expectations, I also touched upon parental expectations. Now, parental expectation is one thing, and then there is parental disapproval. Disapproval of the choices you make, disapproval of what kind of future you want for yourself. Adds to it adds to what one is making. I think 15 to 2022, you're still trying to make build yourself. This is the time when you want to achieve something in your life, and parental approval matters a lot. Okay. Then peer pressure. Peer pressure, we also talked about peer pressure just before this. Peer pressure can also be in terms of a very social space. Now, I once again, I got talking to, in fact, my niece, and she was telling me how it is a point where many youngsters may or may not want to be on Instagram. And if there are people who put up on Instagram, which is something that I've also noticed, that if people put up a lot of their pictures on Instagram, there is a tendency to follow on it and to see how many likes, dislikes are there. Okay, and this this set of number of people following you makes a lot of difference to how you feel. And that can be immensely pressurizing. That can be immensely pressurizing because it may probably impacts how you make certain choices in your life. Drinking and drug use. Now, though it has come as a common cause of anxiety, I think it is also a factor where one tends to fall to numb one's feelings. When I had brought up initially this flight, fight, fawn, and freeze response, one of them includes drinking and drug use, where one tends to sort of make use of drugs or drinks to desensitize oneself, to subdue those emotions which are surfacing. And that can be, in the long run, a huge difficulty to cope with one's emotions. There are people who are extremely sensitive, for whom a small little criticism can tend to be immensely painful, immensely pressurizing, immensely difficult to take. So that is one point where, for many, I'm not saying everybody is like that, but for many, overthinking becomes a very common thing to do. You think about every single thing that other person has commented, whether it's about your dressing, whether it is about your choices, whether it is about how you conduct yourself. So personality factors here make a huge impact. There are many people who absolutely don't care about another person's response, and it's easier for them to deal with criticism. um, I'll just bring the last two up, which is neglect and abuse. Somehow they are more or less two sides of the same coin. Anxiety can be a huge factor for even young children, where there is any kind of neglect where you in today's time there is so much happening. There is TV and there is social media and there's so much. Sitting at home, when there are kids at home, and if a parent is constantly only surfing through their social media or doing something else, more involved with something else, that also can sometimes be neglect. Why I'm using this example? Because that is a moment when a young child, especially, even youngsters, young adults, people want to interact with another human being. And when they find somebody constantly on some other medium, it's a natural tendency even for the child to imitate that response eventually. Whether it's a 2-year-old child, I'm sure you've all noticed every other individual now has a phone, and they're constantly glued to their phones. So whether it is, if you travel in many countries outside of India, people when they're traveling, they're constantly on their phones with music or whatever. They don't interact with another person. This can be a way of coping with one's anxiety. Now, for when I give this example of a parent and a child, I'm trying to say is that can end up being a neglect of a child's what the child is experiencing. If the child is saying, oh, you play with me, and I'm trying to say, okay, you do keep yourself entertained, you do something, that itself can be neglect. Abuse, when I'm referring to abuse, I'm referring to verbal abuse, I'm referring to sexual abuse, I'm referring to any such form of it, where it can be an extremely difficult situation for anybody, young, older, to deal with. It is something which immediately brings up a response of anxiety.